As we have observed throughout the previous discussions, human beings have been responsible for causing a vast amount of damage to the natural environment. This damage takes many forms, including but not limited to climate change, deforestation, industrial pollution, and the careless dumping of waste. These harmful activities ultimately result in a significant reduction in biodiversity and a weakening or even collapse of ecosystems that are essential for supporting all forms of life, including our own. Fortunately, there are several strategies that can be employed to reverse this destructive trend. These strategies aim either to eliminate or minimize the harmful activities that cause environmental damage in the first place, or to reduce their negative effects by actively helping ecosystems adapt and survive despite these pressures. One of the more widely recognized and impactful methods of preserving biodiversity involves the use of breeding programs. These programs are particularly important for endangered species that are on the brink of extinction. The main idea is to breed individuals in captivity in safe and controlled environments, away from the threats they would face in the wild. As their numbers grow, these animals can potentially be reintroduced into natural habitats where they might either boost existing populations or even form entirely new ones. However, the long-term success of such breeding efforts depends heavily on whether the original habitats are protected and safe. Without suitable habitats, the species will likely become endangered all over again, regardless of breeding success. For this reason, another critical solution lies in creating designated protected areas and in restoring or regenerating habitats that have become rare or severely degraded. These include environments such as mangrove forests, coral reefs, wetlands, and rainforests. The goal here is to create safe zones where wildlife can thrive without human interference. If such areas are managed and preserved properly, the need for breeding programs might be reduced, as species would be able to survive and reproduce naturally within their habitats. Conservation also requires us to reduce the environmental impact of necessary human activities, such as agriculture. While farming is absolutely essential for feeding the global population, it does not have to come at the expense of nature. Governments around the world have started to take action by introducing laws and offering incentives to farmers to adopt biodiversity-friendly practices. For example, farmers may be paid to leave field margins, narrow strips of land around the edges of fields, untouched so that wild plants and insects can live there. Similarly, planting hedgerows made of trees and shrubs around fields not only marks boundaries, but also provides food and shelter to various species. These practices increase biodiversity by creating mini habitats that support life beyond the crops being grown. Governments also regulate broader environmental impacts by setting limits or quotas on things like the amount of deforestation allowed annually or the maximum levels of carbon dioxide that businesses can emit into the atmosphere. However, it's not just up to authorities to take action. Individuals have a significant role to play as well. By making thoughtful choices such as recycling our waste instead of throwing everything in the bin, avoiding overconsumption of unnecessary products, and supporting eco-friendly products and companies, we can help reduce the amount of waste that ends up in landfills. This has two important benefits. First, less land is destroyed and more natural areas are left untouched. Second, fewer toxic substances will leak into nearby environments, protecting both water and soil quality. At first glance, all of this might sound like a straightforward fix. One might wonder why we simply do not scale up these efforts and solve all our environmental problems. While this is a hopeful idea, the real world presents many challenges. A major one is financial cost. Preserving biodiversity is expensive, and many individuals, businesses, and governments do not fully understand how they directly benefit from high biodiversity. As a result, they tend to invest their limited funds elsewhere, often focusing on short-term economic gain rather than long-term ecological health. There is also the challenge of balancing modern lifestyles with environmental responsibility. For example, to maintain our current standard of living, we often rely on practices that harm the environment, such as using fertilizers and pesticides to grow enough food for the global population or extracting rare minerals from the earth to manufacture smartphones and computers. In many developing countries, the situation is even more complex. People in these regions often depend on natural resources simply to survive. For example, they may cut down forests not out of greed, but because they need the land to grow crops, the wood to build shelters, or the firewood to cook food and stay warm. These are basic human needs, and addressing them without damaging the environment requires thoughtful global cooperation and support. Ultimately, while the solutions exist and are technically feasible, implementing them on a large scale requires collaboration, commitment, financial investment, and a shift in both individual and societal values towards sustainability and ecological stewardship.